Plan to remove and reinstate a Song dynasty well in To Kwa Wan now official. Former Indonesian maid Ariana back in Hong Kong to testify in court. And Typhoon Hagupit leaves 21 dead in the Philippines so far.
Good evening. The government has endorsed a plan to remove and reinstate later a Sung dynasty well found at the future To Kwa Wan MTR station. Other antiquities found in the area will be preserved on site. The entire preservation project has a price tag of $1 billion. Evelina Lung reports.
The government announced today it has accepted a proposal by the Antiquities Advisory Board to remove and later reinstate two antiquities sitting in the middle of the future To Kwa Wan station. The antiquities in question are a Song dynasty well dubbed J2 and a 12-meter-long water channel dating back to the late Qing dynasty. This will cost at least $10 million.
The current proposal recommended by the AAB, which we have accepted, in our view, is the best option in terms of heritage value, in terms of engineering risk minimization, as well as in terms of the impact on the program of the Sa-Tin Central Link and the financial side. So this is quite a balanced decision.
Other antiquities found in the area will be preserved on site. Preservation of all these relics will cost $1 billion. The Sa-Tin Central Link was expected to be in operation by the end of 2018, but it's been delayed by 11 months because of archaeological work at To Kwa Wan Station. The government insists the preservation of relics would not further delay the project. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
The trial of an employer accused of abusing 3 foreign domestic helpers began today at the district court. One of the workers, Ariana Solistiansi, came back to Hong Kong from Indonesia to testify in court. The defendant denied all the charges except for failing to obtain an insurance policy for one of the workers. Owen Fung reports.
This morning, the defendant, Law Wan Tung, arrived at the district court for the trial. One of the alleged abuse victims, Ariana Solistiningsi, travelled from Indonesia to testify. The defendant is facing 21 charges in total, including alleged assault on 3 former employees, as well as failing to pay wages and grant holidays to Ariana. Law denied all 20 charges, but pleaded guilty to failing to obtain insurance for Ariana. In her testimony, Ariana told the court that she was allowed to sleep from 1 to 5 in the afternoon for a maximum of 4 hours and was given 6 slices of bread and a bowl of rice each day. After working for Law for 5 weeks, the Indonesian domestic helper said she ran away because the defendant had not paid her. But when she complained to the employment agency, Ariana continued, she was brought back to Law's residence and the abuse began 2 days after that. Ariana told the court that the defendant punched and hit her with various objects numerous times. The court heard that, on one occasion, the defendant stripped Ariana and sprayed her with cold water after she dozed off due to exhaustion. She was then made to stand in front of a fan for 1 to 2 hours. The court was also told that, on another occasion, the defendant stuck the tube of a vacuum cleaner into Ariana's mouth and then twisted it for around 5 to 10 seconds. Ariana also told the court that she did not receive any of her wages, as the defendant told her the money had been used to pay for her agency fee, as well as the items she broke. The Indonesian domestic helper explained she was scared of telling anyone of the abuse because the defendant threatened to kill her parents if she did. At the time when she was sent back to Indonesia by the defendant, Ariana said she was very weak to the extent that she was unable to stand up and go to the toilet. And it was at the airport where she told other Indonesian workers of the abuse. The trial is expected to last another 19 days. Owen Fung, TVB News.
An interim injunction to clear the Occupy protest site in Admiralty is one step closer towards being enforced. Talks will be held tomorrow to discuss when the clearance action will take place. Liz Jun reports.
All China Express, which was granted the interim injunction, made changes to the wording of the order. It then received its court seal. Legal representative Paul Zhe said the order will be served on newspapers and at a protest site tomorrow.
Tentatively, we have arranged for a meeting tomorrow morning with the bailiff's office and the police force, and hopefully we'll be able to work out something as far as the logistics is concerned.
The order covers a section of Connaught Road Central and Cotton Tree Drive, but it does not cover a section of Harcourt Road near the central government offices. Some Occupy protesters have removed their belongings from the area covered by the injunction order.
This
protester said he and others would strictly comply with the order. And amid concerns that demonstrators may seek refuge in Lechko and its vicinity after the protest site is cleared, Lechko President Zhang Yoxing is seeking the views of lawmakers on whether to apply for an injunction covering the Lechko protest zone and a nearby area.
We have decided to circulate the legal opinions, the advice the Lechko Commission has received from our legal advisor to all our members. We'll ask members to show their opinions, to tell us their opinions whether we should apply such orders or not.
Zhang expects legislators to come up with a decision in the next few days.
Many of us do not think an injunction is necessary because the Legislative Council is covered by the Power and Privilege Ordinance, which in fact entrusts the duty as well as the power to manage our demonstration area. However, some of our colleagues would feel much more comfortable to have an injunction granted by the court, and I would respect that.
President Zhang Yoxing added that the council has reached a mutual agreement with the police. Officers will inform the Lechko Secretariat and, if possible, obtain approval from the council before enforcing the duties in Lechko. Liz Yun, TVB News.
The Chinese ambassador to the United Kingdom says a British parliamentary fact-finding trip to Hong Kong to look at the Occupy movement would pour oil over fire. Beijing's move to deny the delegation entry has sparked controversy, but Ambassador Liu Xiaoming wrote in the Telegraph newspaper that because the Occupy campaign is still going on and the rule of law is under threat, allowing British MPs to come here would only feed the arrogance of the illegal activists by giving them the illusion of external support. Liu also insisted universal suffrage in Hong Kong has nothing to do with Britain. He wrote that issues relating to political reform are China's internal affairs.
Turning overseas, Typhoon Hagupit has claimed at least 21 lives in the Philippines. Local Red Cross officials say many of the victims died in eastern Samar province, where the storm made landfall on Saturday. More from Jameson Wong.
Death and destruction in eastern Samar province. The provincial capital, Barangan, was among the hardest hit. The Red Cross says many people drowned here because of rising floodwaters. As part of relief efforts, the Philippine military has sent to Barangan a number of C-130 planes loaded with supplies, including food and water. Tacloban, which bore the brunt of Super Typhoon Haiyan a year ago, was also affected. But damage to the city was relatively minor compared with last year. Some people began returning home today, having fled to shelters earlier. This time around, Philippine authorities took no chances and evacuated entire towns and villages in coastal and landslide-prone areas. Red Cross officials say it's a good sign that lessons have been learned. In the capital, life has come to a standstill as the typhoon nears. Today, financial markets, schools, and some government offices were closed in Manila. Many people sought refuge at a school and queued for food handouts.
Our foremost concern is their safety in using this school. Being the school head, I have to take care of their
There were similar scenes in a coastal town in Quezon Province. Even though Hagapit has weekend, residents are not taking any chances. Many of them are staying in temporary shelters. This woman says the waves were so big we might get washed away. Quezon's governor says those living in flood-prone areas have been told to move to evacuation centers. Across the country, more than 1 million people were forced from their homes. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
The Indian capital has officially banned online taxi booking service Uber after one woman was allegedly raped by one of its drivers. A taxi driver was brought before a New Delhi court today. Police expect the court to formally charge him with raping the female passenger. 32-year-old Shiv Kumar Yadav was hired to take the 26-year-old finance company employee home from a dinner engagement last Friday night. Uber is under fire for hiring the man who was arrested for sexual assault 3 years ago. Police say Uber did not do a background check on Yadav. He was tracked down even though he had switched off his mobile phone to avoid being traced. The case has renewed national outrage over chronic sexual violence in India and demands for more effort to ensure women's safety.
6 detainees held for more than 12 years at the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, are beginning new lives in Uruguay. The men were flown to the South American country as part of the latest push by the Obama administration to close the prison. James Aiken reports.
The release of the men, 4 Syrians, a Tunisian and a Palestinian, represents the largest single group to leave the U.S. detention camp since 2009. After arriving in the Uruguayan capital, Montevideo, aboard a U.S. military transport plane, the men were taken to a hospital for medical examinations. The transfer had been delayed for months over security concerns at the Pentagon. It was put off again in August when Uruguay, which agreed to accept them as a humanitarian gesture, became concerned about political risks in the run-up to a presidential election. The lawyer for one of the Syrian men says her client now considers Uruguay his home.
He's so grateful to the government for taking him. At the moment, of course, his main focus is on just getting well, to get well, and also he wants to see his wife and his kids again.
Uruguayan President Jose Mujica, who has called Guantanamo a disgrace, says he rejected a U.S. proposal to ban the detainees from traveling for 2 years after their release. All 6 men had been detained as suspected militants with ties to al-Qaeda in 2002, but were never charged. They had been cleared for release in 2009 but could not be sent home, and the U.S. struggled to find countries willing to take them. On the streets of Montevideo, many approve of the government's decision to accept the men. This woman calls the move a positive act of solidarity. With this latest transfer, the detainee population at Guantanamo now stands at 136. The Obama administration had promised to close the prison, but has faced resistance and restrictions from Congress. Dozens of other detainees have been cleared for release or transfer. More relocations are expected before the end of the year. James Aiken, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, an independent manager to look into ATV's accounts. Prince William and his wife start a visit to New York City. And Bolivia's capital now one of the new 7 Wonders cities.
It's the unique signature of our identity.
Our voices and our emotions are one. When it's coupled with pitch, volume, and crescendo, and this is a very powerful way of influencing the feelings.
Tonight, Culturalin GP Extra Special, Well-Being, Mysteries of the Human Voice, at 9:30 on Pearl.
夠型，咩場面都駕馭到，就好似咁。陣間開記招，執靚啲喎。冇問題 ，Philips 9000系列電鬚刨，8向輪廓感應科技，征服無數面型。V 型正確切替系統，徹底